Good morning, Ovidell Middle School students. This is Mr. Woolley. And remember, the information contained in this video is intended to be viewed only by the students in Mr. Woolley's classroom. By watching the video, you agree that you will not record or share the video with anyone who is not a student in Mr. Woolley's classroom. Alright, today we're going to be working with square roots and cube roots. We're going to show you some examples of how to work with these. Now, a square root, is what you're trying to find, is a number times itself that got you this number. So the square root of 25 is 5 because you think 25 is like, what number times itself gets me 25? In this case, it's 5. All right, now your calculators will come in kind of handy as you guys work on these, obviously. So it's kind of a requirement. You'll need calculators for roots. Now, notice how I have a negative sign on the outside of this one. The square root of 196 is 14. However, because that negative sign's on the outside, I put negative 14. Number 3, square root of a negative 25. There's no solution because there's no number times itself that can give you any negative number. Because remember, a positive times a negative gives you a negative, so that would mean a number times itself has to be either both positive or both negative. So a negative on the inside of the bracket here result in no solution because no number times itself can give you a negative number. Now sometimes you have like these kind of problems, plus or minus. That's what that stands for, plus or minus. So positive or negative. The square root of 4 over 81. You might think that's kind of scary looking as a fraction. Well, just take the square root of the numerator and the square root of the denominator. Square root of 4, 2. Square root of 81, 9. Now on occasion you can square root them and you'll still be able to go even lower terms of your answer. So you can do that possibly too. But since it says the positive or negative square root of this, I'll put the positive or negative in mine as well. So I'm not going to put those into Schoology for you because it's kind of hard to mess around with those symbols and stuff. But just be aware that is available. Once again, I have a negative on the outside of number 5. That's okay. I can have a negative on the outside as long as I have my negative in my answer here. And the square root of 1.44, that's probably what your calculator for. Hit a bunch of 1.44 and hit your square root. And there you go. So some calculators want you to do the square root first and then type in the number. Other calculators have you type in the number and then hit the square root button. So depends on what you got. Square root of negative 0.64, of course, no solution due to the fact that the negative's on the inside and I can't have a negative number on the inside. All right, what do I do when I have like some algebra types of problems? If I got x squared equals 49, so x equals, well, if x squared is 49, well, I don't want x squared, I want just x. So the opposite of squaring a number is square root it. So square root it, and the square root of x squared is just x. Square root of 49 is 7. If w squared equals 9 over 81, w equals what? Well, w squared equals 9 over 81, and I want to get w by itself. So get rid of the square by square rooting it, and square root both sides, of course, just like you do in any algebra equation. And now I'm down to just w. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 81 is 9. You could take that into 1/3 if you wanted to. Next up, a squared is 0.0121. So a equals, well, if a squared is that little decimal number, I don't want the squared in my next to my a, so I do the opposite, square root it, and I'm down to just a, and square root of 0.0121 is 0.11. Now, our last few problems here, we're getting to cube roots. Now, cube roots are different. They're a number times themselves. Times themselves again. So there's 3 of them here. So the square root of 3,375, there's some number times itself that got us this number. Well, in this case, like I said, the calculator is kind of handy. Or if your calculator does not have cube roots, you can go ahead and kind of use some guesswork. I'm not going to give you any huge numbers or nothing by any means, but you can go ahead and hit that cube root. Most calculators have that as a second function somehow on your calculator to find that. You can punch that in and you're ready to go. Now here, the cube root of negative 0.064 has a negative inside. Now previously those were no solution, but remember you're using 3 numbers, a number times itself. So that's 3 times, and that tells you it's going to be a negative number because a negative times a negative is positive, and a positive times one more negative brings it back to a negative again. So it is okay on cube roots to have negatives on the inside. In this case, it ended up being negative 0.4. Number 12 here, cube root of 8 over 125, similar kind of scenario. Find the cube root of the numerator. This is 2. Find the cube root of 125, which is 5. So remember, you can just treat them like individual little pieces and stack them back up as a fraction at the end. But if you don't have a cube root on your calculator, remember you gotta use a little guesswork. Like, oh, 1 times 1 times 1. Well, that's going to be a 1. 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, there's my 8 that I was looking for. So 5 times 5 times 5. Yes, that is 125. So if you have to go backwards and kind of guess and check with multiplication, you can do that. All right, cube root of negative 216. Because it's a negative on the inside of a cube root, I know it's going to be a negative answer. And the cube root of 216 is 6. And you can double check. 6 times 6 is 36. Times 6 again gives you 216. All right, z cubed equals 1 over 27. So z equals, well, if I'm trying to do a cube root situation, all right, if z cubed is this, well, do the opposite and cube root it. Do the opposite and cube root it. And that takes you down to just z. And the cube root of 1 is 1. Cube root of 27 is 3. All right, how about this one, number 15? Back to some square root stuff again. And the square root of y equals 25. So y equals, well, if the square root of y is 25, I do the opposite of a square root, which is squaring the number. So that takes me down to just a y here. And square this number, 25 squared is 625. So y is 625. So, all right, well, thank you for watching, and good luck on your practice today.